What's this AI business happening?
I've heard of this AI. Tell me more.
Everybody's freaking out over it, and I'm like, okay, I get it.
The way that AI is traditionally
what I really like
been
about
used
I think this might be the final
to
disruptor. I
expand
think we had like the
immersive text,
pandemic that
whereas
came
now
along.
it's
and
helping
hopeful
to build
that was
artificial
it.
intelligence.
Especially right now.
And now
A lot of people
undergrads
about
with
linguistics,
AI.
technology, they did it in seconds. And so I realized, okay, this is really going to have a major impact on teaching and learning.
For over a decade, our students have been going to education conferences to share the creative ways they're learning through technology.
You know I'm in a conference right now, right? I'm presenting.
And everyone can hear
You called me while you're presenting? Yeah. Everybody can hear you, right? Yeah.
But 2023 was different. It was the first summer of generative AI, and educators were asking the same questions. What is AI? Will it encourage cheating? And where do we go from here? A question school leaders were scrambling to answer. So, let's just say that many educators consider the way we teach at Renton Prep unusual, even quirky. You want an example? How about students providing professional development for teachers?
You see, AI continues to develop. It starts to form its societal biases. Us humans have our own biases, and we continue to feed them into the AI's algorithm day by day.
My experience with using it in a classroom would be my fourth grader who copied the whole thing, but left in that, like, I am ChatGPT, and he left that in there. I just submitted it.
Yeah, but like Miss Simran, that reminds me, Miss Simran was also talking about how...
Ever since our Director of Innovative Teaching wrote that book on artificial intelligence in 2018, our students have been ahead of the curve in AI. So, when ChatGPT launched in 2022, we believed we were ready. We were wrong.
On Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock, when I was informed that a teacher was resigning, I immediately felt overwhelmed. With 40 days of school left, I knew parents would expect me to go and find a new teacher. I knew that was not going to be possible, to find a teacher who had the skills to come into the school and pick up where this teacher had left off. And I knew probably the burden was going to reside coming back onto me. And I made the decision pretty quickly that I would probably leave the full-time administrative role and go back into the classroom after 14 years. The first morning I came in at 2 o'clock to prepare for that, I sat for 4 hours and worked and worked and worked, and then typed a simple message to the principal in capital letters, help. I felt overwhelmed. I felt frustrated. I felt like I had lost the skills of doing a lesson plan, and I had 6 separate lesson plans to do for children who were going to be walking in within 2 hours. And I've not often felt so insecure, overwhelmed, frustrated, angry, scared. It's just not who I am. And yet I was sitting there for hours thinking, I can't do this. Part of me saying, you have no choice. You have to do it. And it was a time that was, quite frankly, fearful. Fearful if we didn't meet the needs of the children, that they would be walking out saying it was a horrible day, a horrible experience, which would just cause parents to feel even more stressed, and that would permeate through the school. And so by 6:30 that morning, when the principal responded with, here are some great ideas, I've been working through this, here are some lesson plans, there was a clear sense of relief because I can implement the lesson plans. And so the day actually went incredibly well, and that gave me time to start to reflect on how I was going to begin coming in and preparing those lesson plans with her help.
We all know that teachers are the most essential part of an effective, successful school, public or private, urban, suburban, or rural. But what we don't fully understand is why teachers come and go. What will it take to hire and keep teachers who can thrive in the age of generative AI?
And one of the first questions in my job interview was, what was my vision on the use of technology in education? And honestly, I didn't have a clue. I had never touched a computer. I was a digital illiterate. So I didn't get a job, and I was overcome by 2 emotions. The first one was, I was angry. I was angry because I thought I had applied for a job as a teacher, not for a job as a computer scientist. In fact, if they had told me that computers would become an important part of my work as a teacher, I probably wouldn't have chosen the profession.
I'm not convinced you got to be a technologist to be a teacher. I think you got to have basic computer skill. But I think you could be a great teacher and use minimal technology in the classroom. I think you can do that now. I think you can be that way tomorrow, and I think you'll be able to be that way 10 years from now. I think you could be a great teacher and use a lot of technology in the classroom. I think that's the case now, tomorrow, and 10 years from now.
When we worked on hiring teachers through new iterations of our school design, we went through this debate. Do we look for people who have tech skills, or do we look for people who have none and then are willing to learn? In one instance where someone had a lot of tech skills, they didn't have the people skills, and they didn't know how to look to the heart of who the kids were, and it lost a lot in that teaching process.
That's really what the science shows, is that we have teachers who have strengths, we have teachers who have preferences. We've got all levels of teachers, and we need to expect that and respect that and support that and educate that and pay that, which is another issue.
Does AI complement or conflict with the reasons people choose teaching? How well do we understand what motivates people to teach? And do teachers' core motivations matter in the age of AI?
Well, actually, I never really ever wanted to be a teacher. In fact, I can remember distinctly at 19 having this discussion with my dad, who said, "Gina, you make a good teacher." And I said, "Absolutely not. I wanted to be a doctor." I had lots of careers before I got to education. Before this, I was a critical care nurse. And that was probably my compromise of not being a doctor. After I graduated from college and did all that, I decided that, well, I'm going to go into nursing. And then one day I had one of the administrators at the hospital say, how would you like to open a preschool and run it for our nurses? And I go like, oh yeah, I can do that. I thought I could, of course I was young, I could do anything then. So then I said yes. So we started the whole process of me being in charge of running the new Child Development Center for the nurses. Within a year and a half, I had 2 schools. I had 200 children, 36 staff. I woke up in the middle of the night and I realized, oh my God, I don't know how people learn. Why did they let me do this job? So then I started asking questions and people saying, well, it's just preschool. Why do you need to know that? And I'm going like, but it's learning. It has a whole lot to do with the brain. Finally, I was undeterred and I ran into a guy by the name of Eric Jensen, and he had started brain-based learning, and that's when I got hooked on brain-based learning. I realized that's it. We need to understand how the brain learns as teachers before we teach. Then I realized
Before that, what happened was the words were as flashcards. So I was stumbling on the word atmosphere, it would come up as a flashcard and reading progress and I could practice. Not bad, pretty good.
My father was an immigrant from Italy, and he was the oldest of 3. And his mother was deserted by her husband, and she actually had to put the 3 of them in an orphanage temporarily. And his brother Horace, in school, was considered sort of a discipline problem, is what teachers would call. And he was lobotomized and then was institutionalized for the next 60 years. That had a major impact on my father, and certainly my grandmother never forgave herself. But I think that informed both my father and me the recognition that people in power did not always have the best interests of others at heart. And I read about Saul Alinsky, who was considered sort of the father of modern-day community organizing, connecting churches, religious congregations, community organizations, labor unions, to begin to confront some of the systemic inequities in our communities, and decided that I wanted to learn how to be an organizer. So I was a community organizer for 19 years, and I saw that people were developing these leadership skills, and that not only were they solving the community problems, but they were dramatically transforming their lives. What I began to think, it would be so much better if people came to these realizations at a younger age. So I began to consider becoming a teacher. And this was a time when the last refugee camp in Thailand for the Hmong was closing. And
do you feel that people that are entering into teaching now, they're going to be more like you and not resistant to using AI as a teacher?
All of us have certain instincts about what motivates people, and our instincts are sometimes right and sometimes wrong. And if you look at 50 years of behavioral science, it allows us to recalibrate our understanding of motivation and then deploy that understanding in the classroom.
The most commonly examined motivations were to do with the desire to work with children, to make a social contribution, these kinds of altruistic motives. Our approach was adopting a comprehensive motivational framework to examine if additional motivations that are emphasised in motivation theories would also apply to motivations to teach, and indeed they did. So 2 in particular, which are ability motivations, so wanting to pursue something that you think you have the skills and abilities for, and intrinsic motivations, the loving, teaching kinds of motivations, did turn out to be, in fact, amongst the most highly endorsed motivations for teaching. So these had been rather overlooked until then, and the personal utility values, things like family flexibility, having vacation time at the same time as your kids, those kinds of motivations in the literature had been referred to as unworthy, and we wondered whether that was the case, or if it would make perfect sense for teachers to think about their quality of life like other career professionals do, without it meaning that they're any kind of a less committed or less effective teacher.
I wasn't sure what I wanted to be when I was younger. I thought I wanted to be a fashion designer and a dancer. And I got the opportunity to work with my mom and mentor under her. And when I saw the way that she impacted kids who other teachers said, they're not going to go anywhere, don't worry about them, they're just who they are, that she would inspire a passion in them and get them so excited about something in their life and learning that they persisted and exceeded all possible expectations other adults had of them. I saw the impact on the kids and I thought that's what I want to do. Which was funny because when I first told her, she said, "Michelle, you're really good at art." She said, "Why don't you do a career in arts?" And I actually started going in that direction and got a scholarship, but it felt like there was still a gap, that there was something else that I wanted to do and impact, and that was teaching and education. There was a younger sibling and 2-sibling pair that the parent thought, well, she's not really smart, the older sister's smarter. And at one point, she came back and she said, "Mrs. Zimmerman said that I'm smart and I can do this." And it seems like it's such a small phrase and statement, but the fact that she said, "Mrs. Zimmerman said I can," and knowing now that she's grown up and she's gone into a career of helping people, that's gonna get me. To hear how a child's entire life can change by someone seeing them and saying, "You have worth, you have value, you're smart, you can do this." And that only one voice in a child's life can be the only one that changes their trajectory to the point of helping people and making the world a better place. I wanted that for my life.
The last 4 years, I've tried to lower my expectations of teachers. So, as you're talking, I'm asking myself, do I have unrealistic expectations of a teacher? I've fought against lowering those expectations, both for students, for teachers. Whatever it takes to fulfill the mission, do it.
Yeah.
If it takes you 6 hours, fine. If it takes you 24 hours, do it.
Yeah.
These kids are in your charge. But that's not realistic, because there has to be a balance in life. It can't be 24/7, 7 days a week. So, do you lower the expectations and the quality of the work? How do you compromise? What do the professions say? Yeah, we're going to pay you for 40 hours, but you know it's actually going to be an 80-hour work week.
Yeah.
You do know that, right? So, if you're wise enough to be a teacher, you're wise enough to understand that, you bought into the system, that's the way the system. Now that, I think, is wrong. That's why I'm saying, I don't see teaching the way it's been done, or the way it's being done today, is going to continue. It can't continue that way.
Yeah.
We're going to lose more and more teachers. Mental health will get worse and worse. The stresses, the expectations on teachers are continuing to increase. They're not lowering. Is it humanly possible to be a teacher today? With the expectations that our systems, our structures, our schools, including this one,
and your parents,
and the parents.
There are a couple of words that I heard you say, and correct me if I'm wrong. I heard the word compromise, and I heard the word lower our expectations. Are those the only two choices?
Here is the key point from this 50 years of research. There's a certain kind of reward that we use in organizations. Psychologists call it a controlling contingent reward. If you do this, then you get that. We use all kinds of rewards in organizations and in schools, but this is the mainstay. Here's what the science tells us about if-then rewards. If-then rewards are extraordinarily effective for simple, short-term tasks. But the same body of science tells us that if-then rewards are not very effective for more complex, creative work with longer time horizons. Why? They get us to focus too narrowly, we don't look expansively, and we sometimes exhaust our motivational energy. So, what we need to do is upgrade our motivational operating system so that we treat people well and foster enduring motivation by giving autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy is a sense of self-direction, some sovereignty, some control over what they do, when they do it, how they do it. Mastery is the sense of getting better at something that matters, getting feedback on something that's important, and making progress. And purpose is knowing not simply how to do something, but why you're doing it in the first place.
Teacher agency, autonomy, and intrinsic motivation. The research suggests a need to talk about why they matter more in the age of AI.
I've been pacing, The future of learning is the future of technology and innovation. It is the future of effective instruction. And so we have to bring those together. So that's why what we're doing.
We most definitely need to prepare our students for what is here and what is coming. So if you've come to education thinking you're not going to use technology, you're going to use it every day.
At the school, you're the new grade 3-4 teacher. Do you know how to use these? Like, well, actually I do. And he says to me, that's great because you're now the computer teacher.
If AI is the future of learning and ignoring it is not an option, what do we do about the wall?
The teaching wall is a real thing, and I think every teacher is going to experience it at different times in their career, or maybe even different times of the year. And what the wall is really, to me, is it's this moment when you realize that, teaching kids is only a very small part of your job some days, when it shouldn't be, when it should be the biggest part of your job.
Please hit the like button below and subscribe to see the new episodes.